All right, welcome back to Restoring Christine. This is a channel where we've been rebuilding a 1956 Chevy Bel Air, my own two hands in my own garage. But I tell you what, the weather outside right now is frightful. It's too cold to work. It is literally freezing. I just don't want to work on this car I'm doing body work, I'm doing body filler right now, and I just don't want to do it with the temperature below 32 degrees. I mean, it's ridiculous. So anyway, so what I want to do is I'd still like to get a video out here for you. And my son had this, he's been telling me, he's like, Dad, hey, listen, he says, I check out your videos, and then every now and then you bring up, hey, when I used to race on dirt, or I used to do this or that or the other. And he says, I'm left wishing you'd tell a story about that. I said, well, we can do that. So that's what I'm going to do this week, is I'm going to tell you a little racing story about when I used to race on dirt and why I don't race street stocks anymore, or why I came to a stop. So check out this story. So let's start this out where it all began, as far as like my stock car fandom. When I used to be a fan of stock car racing and I was like really deeply into it, I used to watch NASCAR on Saturdays and Sundays. I'd watch the Busch Series and the Winston Cup Series on Sundays, and I was into it, and I was in my own bubble, I guess. And my family, my dad's side of the family, my cousins and my aunts and uncles and everything, they live on the other side of the river at the time. And I didn't get to see them very often, but one day I was at their house. I was at my uncle's house, and in the middle of the living room was this tire. And I'm like, what is this? I mean, it looked like a racing slick, but it wasn't a racing slick. It wasn't a drag racing tire. And it said, Goodyear on it, and yellow writing, and it had some grease marker writings on it. And I said, what the heck is this story with this tire? And one of my cousins steps up and he says, he goes, oh man, we got that when we went to Talladega. That's a souvenir. We bought that from Terry Labonte's souvenir stand. So they brought home this tire. And it's like, man, well, you guys, like, you go to Talladega? Oh yeah, we go to Talladega. Oh, that's cool. And then we discovered that, okay, we're like, I'm a racing fan too. And they didn't know that about, what I'd been following. So they were like, hey man, it's like, well, I tell you what, we're getting ready to go to the track, next week. We're going to go watch Darrell LaBeouf race his super stock. I said, what the heck are you talking about? He goes, no, we're going to go watch Darrell LaBeouf race his super stock over at Minge Speedway over in Mississippi. I said, well, what's that all about? And then so the next thing you know, here we go. I said, yeah, I'd like to go. I'm going to go watch. And so then that's where we went. So I went to go watch them, and I'm seeing junk cars, what looked like to me junk cars, but apparently they had, as I know now from experience, was a lot of money in these cars. So I'm watching these cars. It looked like they just came out of the back parking lot, and they're going bumper to bumper, and they're beating and banging and going around the track, and it's wide open exhaust, and it is just, there's dirt flying. It's loud, it's violent, and it was totally awesome. And I said, wow. I'm sitting next to my wife, and it's like, holy cow, we totally need to do this. And she's like, no, we don't. And I'm like, oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. So the next thing you know, I'm searching the classified ads, and I found me a 1978 Cutlass body that I bought for $200, and it had a cracked frame. And I brought it home, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It took me a little while to gut the car, and then I bought a second one, and that didn't have a cracked frame, but it had more body parts, because I was told that you need a lot of body parts if you're going to race street stock. So I had two of them, and I started to build the car. So let me start showing you some of the pictures. So I went digging in my photo albums. I pulled everything out. So this was Darrell LaBeouf's super stock, and this is not the one that he was racing at the time. He had a Camaro that was looked like more of a street stock, but everybody was racing these dirt modifieds, and they had these dirt modifieds at the time. And this particular picture was at West Bank Speedway. They might have called it Jefferson Speedway at the time. And I'm not sure if this was Darrell or if this was Darrell's son, but U2 Racing. And I've still got a t-shirt that we got from them, and that was they were good people. They lived down the bayou over in Lafitte, and you can see the date. This is August 1996. And Darrell had you know, we'd all get out there, and this is the whole thing. You know, that's my Uncle Melvin, and then his my cousin Susie, a whole bunch of other racers in the background. You know, when Darrell would have won, what was this, 1996, I guess? Yeah, so 1996, and he won whatever this race was. And there's a number of racers behind him. I recognize Jeff Lang. A lot of my cousins and their kids are in this picture. So he had been racing. Darrell had been racing since the 1960s, and I have some pictures of him. I wish I could find him. I couldn't find him for this video, but I mean, he's a way back racer, way back when they were racing Tri-5s. They were racing Tri-5s when they were like junk. So I built my car, and I don't have any pictures of me building it. This is you could tell this is all film. So this is in the days before digital cameras and before cell phones. So that's me, 1996, I guess it was. And this is when I first built the car, brand new out there. And then I kind of like with spray painted all the stuff. And it's not exactly my best artistry on the numbers, but 24 KSI was me. And so this is very early, and it's not a dent or a scratch in the car. And that was, I guess, before I took my first green flag on the track. Got another one, 96. So there you go, April 96. So my daughter was born in May of 96. So I had a newborn at home when this picture was taken. And this must have been, since I got to have a helmet on, that's after pack down, and it must have been during hot laps. And the track was always really greasy. So I had a Monte SS nose piece that I kept on it. So it looked like a Monte Carlo SS, but it was a metric cutlass body, and I guess I call it the G body. Yeah. It had 3-wheel brakes. So this is one of my first trophies, I guess, in 1996. It's got to be, because that's what the car looked like then. And I was a newbie, a beginner, didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had my Speedway fire suit. It was a Nomex rating of like 1. if it was in a fire, I think I probably would have burst into flames. That suit was really thin. I still have that suit. It's packed up, and I don't throw anything away. I keep all my souvenirs, all my stuff. 1997. So that's a year later. I got a few more graphics on the car. I think this is when we started to really get good. So on when I was racing in 97, I was winning every now and then, and I'd win heat races, or I'd finish in a trophy, and I'd finish in the money. It wasn't often. I would rarely win a feature, but every now and then I would. So there you go. Oh, that's a young man. Look at that. Holy cow. What happened? What does age do to us? So yeah, so now I had graphics on. I had 24 KSI. You can see it now. Chasing Racing. I used to have a website on chasingracing.com. Back in the days of dial-up, AOL, and Net Zero. Another. So feature winner. So this was taken. If it was a feature winner, this one was taken with the trophy. So that was in the pit. So that had to be a heat win of some sort. But this is one of the features that I won. So it wasn't always glory. Every now and then you come home and the car would look like this. You know, it looks like it got a busted ball joint or something on it. You had to run the stock rear end, so I had the C-clips in the rear end, and every now and then you'd break a C-clip, you'd break an axle, and the axle would come flying out, the tire would come flying out, and you got this harpoon going 60 miles an hour down the front stretch, and it was just dangerous. But they made us run these old GM rear ends. We couldn't put the Ford 9-inch, so we had the C-clips in them still. And it had 3-wheel brakes, so I can tell you that when this happened, I probably lost all brakes, because I only had the left front. You'd go into the corner and you'd stab the brake, and it would set the car and pitch it, and you'd power slide around the corner. And this is the trailer that I built for it. I built this trailer in this very same garage. And when was this picture taken? 1998? Yeah, okay, so that was about right before I parked it. This is the rarest of the rare. My wife rarely came out to the track to watch me race, because she was at home taking care of the babies. And so this was a nice one. And it looks like I have a trophy back there. It looks like it's about only as tall as my helmet, so I'll probably finish third or so in the heat. But then there was glory, and this is one of my favorites. I had family was out there, and this is great. This is a feature win. Darrell LaBeouf is in the back there with his crew chief Cotton, Darrell's wife. Jeff Lang's another racer. My Uncle Melvin is back here at the gate. Jeff McCollum was another racer that used to race in this same class. My cousin Julie, there's Darryl LaBeouf's son in the back. It's all of these kids now are all grown adults with kids in their own family. But this was great. This is why I used to love to do it. I had family out there. I had friends. I had a lot of people that were behind me, even though I would go literally just like I am in this garage, and I would go and I would work by myself. I worked by myself in the garage. I would work by myself in the pits, except I had family there to help me. So after 1998, I parked the car, and I had to work in my house. I had a growing family, had a little bitty house, and we had 2 kids at the time, and I just needed more room, so we started putting this big addition on the house. So I parked the car sat in the backyard for a couple of years. And after we finished the house, 2 years later, 3 years later, the car was still sitting there, and it was just, mothballs. You can imagine a dirt stock that sits in the back in the weeds for a long time. I had to go through it bumper to bumper, and that's what I did. So when I came back, I checked the rules, and they were starting to allow a lot more things. So instead of running regular radial tires, they started to allow us to run the McCreary's and the Hoosiers. So I went to Clausen's Racing and Independence, and I bought 4 tires. I bought 4 Aero wheels, the 10-inch wide ones, put those on the car. I had a 2-speed Power Glide. So I had a 2-speed Power Glide in it, and the 2-speed, you used to have it to where you'd put it in drive, and it would slip, and then you throw it in low, and it would lock up, and then so you could run a light dummy converter. We weren't supposed to, but that's what we were doing. So anyway, I had that set up, and the car was running really good, and I took it out there 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. It was probably, I think, the fourth week we were out there, and this is 2001, summer of 2001, and I remember that very, very well. On this one particular Saturday night, I think I'd shaken it all down, and I got in the car back to where it was ready to go, where it was really like it was starting to feel good again, and I'd shaken all the bugs out of it. So on that Saturday, the car was ready. I had the car ready. It was already on the trailer, and we had a new baby on the way. My wife was 7 months pregnant at the time with my youngest, Jensen. She was about 2 months away from delivery, and we went to go shopping for a new car for her because we had 4, and now we were about to come 5. We needed a bigger vehicle. So we were test driving this vehicle, and we committed to it, and we went that day, and we committed, so we knew we were going to sell her car. And so I had her old car was in the driveway, so somebody was supposed to come Sunday morning to look at the car. So I left the house very, very late that Saturday by myself at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is very late if you're going to go to the pit stall at the track. So I left with the car by myself. So I towed it to Wagaman and got set up in the pits and went through pack down, and then went through hot laps, and the track was slick and slimy and greasy just like it normally was. So we start racing. So we go into the first heat race, and it doesn't take long for us all to just be slipping and sliding around. And everybody kind of settled in, and my car wasn't really set up for a slick track. It was set up for more of a drier track. And so I was set up more for the feature. So I was just kind of like pacing myself, just making laps. And on the last lap of the heat race, I go into turn 1. I took the white flag. As I'm going around and I go into turn 1, I pitch the car into the corner. I stab the brake, and the car, jumps to the side, and I started feathering the throttle. And just as I did that, out of the left side, now my car is a little bit sideways, and out of my left ear, I hear this loud engine. And I turn, and I can see this Camaro, another street stock, coming straight at me. And it was number 57, Frank Golaforo. I'll never forget this. And he slams right into my door. And when he does, the car, it picks me up, and my car comes up. The right rear tire gouges into the dirt. And the next thing you know, it was barrel roll time. And we went over and over and over and over. And I remember it vividly. So I had my hands on the wheel, and I saw him when he hit me. When the car went up, when it came back down, the wheel started jerking. And so when the wheel started jerking, I had a 5-point harness on, and I just thought, just to do this, and I quickly shoved my fingers underneath, and I grabbed my harness. I grabbed the harness at the shoulder straps, and I'm going over and over and over, and it sounded like somebody was beating, like I had my head in a galvanized garbage can, a drum, and somebody's just beating and banging on it with bats and whatnot. It was loud as can be, and I went over and over and over, and I'm watching when the hood, the roof hit, and the roof came down. When the roof came down, it bent my halo bar and all my window bars. I had window bars, and started breaking them free. And 3 of them broke completely free and flew, I don't know where. But the 4th one stayed, and it stayed attached on the bottom, and it came down, and it was like pointing right at my face as I'm going over. So I'm tucked like this, and I'm watching this bar, and I'm thinking it's going to harpoon me in the face. It was the scariest thing. The next thing you know, as quickly as it happened, and it seemed like it was forever, but as quickly as it happened, it stopped, and the car landed on all 4s, except I was literally, the frame was on the ground. Springs had flown everywhere, tires were flat. I mean, the car basically was demolished, and I was still inside of it, still holding on to the straps. My hood was tacoed, there was a fire on the carburetor, and as I'm looking at it, I'm dazed. The track official comes running, and he yells at me for me to throw him my fire extinguisher. So I reached over, disconnected it. It was on a transmission tunnel, the drive shaft tunnel. Handed it to him. We dropped the window net, and then the next thing you know, he's putting out the fire with my fire extinguisher. I got 2 guys reach in, and they starting to yank me out of the window. It's like nobody even asked if I was okay. They just came and just started jerking me out. Adrenaline is flowing. And the first thing I could think to do was, my car's junk, who did it? And I turned and I saw they had it was a red flag. So everybody was stopped wherever they were on the track. And I saw him, I saw where he was, and I ran to turn 2. He was just coming out of turn 2. I ran to turn 2, and I stuck my head in his face, and I was like, just pointing my finger at him, and had a few choice words, and I guess I used all of my sentence enhancers, to give him a piece of my mind. And I went back, and they pulled my car back into the pits. They put me in an ambulance, and they bring me back into the pits, and then the EMT's in the ambulance, and he's like, follow my finger. How many fingers am I holding up? Where are you? What's your name? Where are we? So all these questions, it's like, yeah, I've got this. And he goes, let me see your helmet. So he looks at my helmet, and he doesn't see any cracks on it. And he's like, all right, well, look, you're gonna feel that in the morning. So you're gonna probably want to, when you go home and go, you're gonna want to go take some aspirin. I'm like, what? That's it? And they let me out of the back of the ambulance. Meanwhile, my car had been towed by a tractor and been pulled, not where my trailer was, not where my truck was, not where I could load it up and go home. No, they towed it way over by the highway, way the hell out in the weeds, like a scrap iron. Kind of literally like the movie Cars, when they do that with Doc. Like, the fabulous Hudson Hornet. Let's just drag him off. That's what they did with my car. And so I was forced to stay there until they finished the entire program that entire night. And this happened maybe at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And they didn't finish the racing program until about midnight. So at about midnight, they're putting, they're finally at that point in time, then they're willing to help me put my car on the trailer. And at that point, I'm getting dizzy. And I'm there by myself. Nobody else is with me. I don't think I had any family there that night. And I drove home, and I don't know, it's maybe 15 miles from there to my house. And I drove home and pulled a truck in the driveway, and went inside and told my wife, I said, we're done. We're done. And she's like, oh, you've said that before. And then, so I took some aspirin and I went to bed, took a shower, went to bed, woke up the next day because somebody was ringing the doorbell. And it was this lady that was going to look at my wife's car. And I was so dazed and confused. And she's like, yeah, I'm here to see the car. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Oh, here's the keys. Let me know what you think. I had a concussion. I wasn't in my right mind. So I sat at the kitchen table after that, and I said, you know what? I don't need to be doing this anymore. I need to do something else. And that was the end of my racing career. That was when I parked it. My little boy was born 2 months later, Jensen, and he's the one that wanted to hear these stories, and this is the one. This is the story. This is why I stopped racing. I stopped racing because I had little kids in the family. I just couldn't do it anymore. And what the good news is, what came next? Christine did. That's what led to Christine. When I finished racing, when I stopped racing, I sold all of my stuff, and when I got my heart up to it, and I said, you know what? I need to get back into something that involves gears, that involves wrenches, that involves me being in a garage. Here comes Christine. So that is the silver lining. So the fact that I rolled over my race car, the fact that I stopped racing, is what brought me to this 56 Bel Air that I'm so fond of, that we're restoring right now on this channel. So that's going to do it for this story. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear more of these kind of stories. I don't know that I got a whole bunch of them, but I got a few that are worth telling. So we're going to get back in this car after the holidays, and then we'll be back at it with some content. We'll be doing more body filler. I've got a Harbor Freight stud welder we're going to use on the driver's side. I've got some other things going on that's going to be some new content. It ought to be good, ought to be interesting. So if you're liking my videos, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you're enjoying the channel, I'd appreciate a subscription. In the meantime, if I don't see you before then, take care of yourself. Cheers.